And now, it's time for talk.
You are looking at a 4th of July family celebration at Hornersville. This is Little River. In the background, this is Dr. Kinsolving. We are going to talk about this Kinsolving legend that I grew up hearing about at my home in Cardwell, knew all about this. And we have the gentleman in our studio who's going to tell us about this mansion here on the banks of the river, about the doctor himself, and we have Mr. Wesley Buck, who is a farmer, who is a lifelong resident of Dunklin County, who has just delved into history and lectures at schools and clubs. Mr. Buck, good to welcome you back and bring us this beautiful picture, and I know it's extremely valuable to whoever owns this picture. The Kinsolving legend, was he really a versatile man that we've heard about? A giant in his time, really?
We could probably say and truthfully say he was probably the most versatile man living in the United States.
All right, now I know he was a doctor, and I know he farmed, and you're holding something here that you were showing me just then. What is that?
That's a surveyor's chain that is about 100 years old. It came from Sheffield, England, and it even has adjustment here for the temperature. To take care of it, you twist this little screw here, and if it's too warm and you get it down to normal temperature, or vice versa, and when it's too cold, you get it back to the normal temperature.
Okay, now that's a surveyor's chain that came from England.
Two rods in length. Came from Sheffield, England.
Okay, 2 rods. And the little tag that I see over there, that's part of the surveyor's...
That's part of the surveyor,
right.
Yes. That's called a link.
Okay, now he surveyed up and down in this county area?
He worked for the government. He surveyed, he was back when he surveyed for the government, and then he surveyed for individuals. He even surveyed the land for the government, you know, when the government owned thousands of acres.
Okay, he did that along with his medical practice?
Yes.
And he practiced there in the Hornersville area?
In the Hornersville area.
Okay, now you also brought me some more pictures. Perhaps we could identify what these are as we begin this story, and then you just tell me about the man. I've got Geese Galore here. Tell me what the meaning of this.
Dr. Kinsolving was the first man to introduce geese into the cotton fields. They thought the geese would eat the cotton, and Doctor proved that they wouldn't. They'd eat the grass, and that's if not all the 1,400 head, that's part of the 1,400 head that he owned. His fields were infested with Johnson grass, which a lot of people think that
I thought that was new. I thought Johnson grass was a newly introduced to this area.
Dr. Anderson brought it here. That was
his predecessor.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Dr. Anderson brought Johnson grass to this area.
As pasture land. He's cattle.
Okay,
cattle
all right.
business.
And so Dr. Kinsolving was the first man to try geese in fields.
That's true.
And it really worked.
It worked.
Okay, now how much land did he farm?
Well, and just to say it this way, that they owned land in practically every state in the Union and in Canada.
Oh, so Dunklin County wasn't...
That's just part of it.
Okay, now, I brought on the screen right now the other picture, and it's mules. Tell me about the mules.
Well, he had an enormous number of mules. I couldn't tell you how many, but that was before the days of the tractor. And his headquarters for the mules is I think everyone knows where the airport is at Hornersville. And the runway is 3/4 of a mile long, and just at the end of that runway there was a road that went down there, and that was where the headquarters, 3/4 of a mile north of the blacktop that runs to Auburn.
Okay, and that was where his headquarters?
That was the headquarters for the mules.
For his mules.
That's a picture
He
there.
had mules that farm. So you're talking about vast acreage in Dunklin County.
Vast acreage.
Well, now, give me off the top of your head, are we talking about 2,000 acres?
Yes, or more.
Or more?
More.
Okay, and then land in every
state. Back there.
So he was a very rich man?
Very, well, yes, we'll look at that.
We'll put it that way. All right. Now, this was truly a mansion for that period of time, was it not? On the banks of the river.
Yes.
That was before the drainage ditches
were dug.
Before the drainage
ditches, yes.
Okay. Is the house still there? Is the mansion still there?
No, it's torn down, and there's another house built there on the site.
All right. Now, talk to me about the man and the legend and his accomplishments and anything that you have read of interest to him or know about. Did you know him personally?
I knew him personally. I was born on this estate. I was born on the airport, which is Section 12. He owned Section 12 and Section 13 there in that. And then he owned a big farm down in Arkansas, there by Buckeye, where you go to Buckeye and turn west, and when you turn back south there at land line there in Buffalo Creek, he owned a section there.
All right. Now you were going to tell me about what he was doing in this period of time besides the farming land. Was he instrumental in introducing any special kinds of crops? You said geese. What about was he innovative in trying different crops?
Yes. You just name it, and he was it. He even went and got the Pima cotton, which is a long staple cotton that they grow in Arizona, which is you can't grow it here because the season's too short. He thought that he could acclimate it by it has a yellow blossom. It's only 3 locks, and he brought it from here, and then he put that in a big ice house and tried to acclimate it, which that didn't work out.
He put what in an ice house?
He pulled the bowls. They just wouldn't open, but he put the bowl in there and let them open over a period of time. And he's going to open it that way and get it acclimated where the season would work out. Kind of a wild idea.
Oh, okay. It was a wild idea, yeah.
Oh, he had a bunch of wild ideas.
Okay.
I'll have to name a few.
All right, name a few.
All right, he said we spent too much money on growing cotton. He'd just take a middle buster and take the wings off and leave the point on. He'd run down between the stalks, plant down that middle, and then when they came up, he would just use a mowing machine, and when the weeds got up there, he'd just top the weeds. And I was teaching school, I believe, at that time, and it didn't work. He lost 100 acres or more there in one field.
Okay. I see why he had to bring in his geese if he'd just let the weeds compete with the cotton.
It just didn't work.
It just didn't work. All right. All right. Now, he surveyed, he farmed, he was a physician, and what's this I've always heard about money being buried? Tell me this, do you know that story?
I know that story.
Well, tell me.
All right. They think that he had a greenhouse out there in his yard in the southwest corner.
He had a greenhouse?
A greenhouse, and they think that he had his money buried in that greenhouse. Now, you don't know, you can't no way of proving that, but he had a maid there that worked there, Rosie Miller. And we presume that he thought that she watched him when he went to the greenhouse, and he decided then he'd go in his cellar and cut a hole in the wall and then put a coffin-like thing, a box back there, and he'd put this money through this hole and let it fall down in this coffin-like thing, and then he'd plaster that over and put like you have a stop for a flue, flue stop there, and plaster. And then he had large inner tubes of truck tires and all kinds of things in there, and he filled those full of money.
Wait, inner tubes?
Inner tubes, large inner tubes.
Inner tubes of truck tires?
Truck tires full of money. I have pictures of it. It's wash tubs full of it.
Wash tubs full of money?
Money.
Okay, now were there no... What years are we talking about?
He died in 1942, and this after he did. He's borrowing money from Bank Kennett here, pretending that he was broke to, get out of income tax, I presume. And when he died, they thought he ought to have some money because they remembered there the old Bank of Hornersville, he got $30,000 about World War I in gold certificates, and it never did show up. And so they went around there, and they went to pecking on that wall, and it was hollow there, and they broke in there then, and they found this money, and they went to the inner tube. See, he had this cellar full of snakes. They called
now, really? Did he have
He did have full of snakes.
Okay, now wait. Now wait.
Non-poisonous.
Non-poisonous snakes.
But they didn't know it.
Okay. And he would go down in there.
Yeah.
He was not afraid of the snakes.
No, I wouldn't be
Now,
either.
how old is he at this period of time? What age?
This is getting pretty well in his years, not just a short while before he died. He didn't think he was going to die, you see, like a lot of people, and he didn't tell anything.
Now, how old did he live to be?
He was in his late 70s.
Okay. Now, all right. Now, back to the hole in the wall with the flue stop there, and what would he do? Just go and poke money in there, and it would fall down behind the wall into a coffin?
That's right.
Into a box, like a coffin?
Yes.
Okay. To call it a coffin makes it a better story, doesn't it? Okay. Now then, he also had inner tubes full of money. Now, how did he get the money in the inner tubes?
Well, I
just
suppose
a slot in the top?
Yeah, a slot, I guess.
Okay, now where did he, and he kept the inner tubes in his basement?
In his basement.
Okay, and he kept the basement full of snakes?
Full of snakes and a triple lock. Borrowing money from the Bank of Kennett to make crop on with $250,000 in his cellar.
Well, now, do you call that eccentric?
Yes, very eccentric. He was in many ways. I could talk all day until...
Okay, tell me some more. I've not heard these stories. Tell me some more. What about, name me some of his other eccentricities. We're talking about southeast Missouri history right now.
Well, I named one a while ago about trying to climb it at that long staple cotton.
Yeah, yeah.
And, well, he just let his land grow up, you know, and...
all right, but now, the money situation, they found, you have no idea really how much money they did find.
Yes, about $250,000.
$250,000 they did find.
And $30,000 in gold certificates have been there ever since World War I. They remembered the bank in Hornersville, the old the Langdon Bank. That wasn't much in Planters, one there before that. And they remembered, Shep Williford was a cashier there, and he remembered that he gave him those $30,000. And they had to send a lot of this money back to Washington. It was just all, you know, crumbling. And the gold certificates had been recalled.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the Lindenberg case.
Yeah.
That was after the Lindenberg case. They'd been recalled. And I don't know. He's strange in every way you can imagine.
All right, now...
I don't have time to go through it all that. I would if you wanted to.
No, all right. Now, anything else that you think of that is of interest about him and about his holdings and estates there and family, and anything else that you would tell us about that? We have a couple of minutes left. Anything that you have found of interest as you lecture to people about the man or about his accomplishments or anything of that sort?
Well, he was a mechanic, a blacksmith and a millwright and an inventor. He was a student of Greek and Latin, and he could quote Shakespeare and Burns just by the hour without a mistake or without a hint.
And he was an inventor?
He was an inventor.
I wonder what he did in his spare time. You know.
Well, that's only part of it. You could just go ahead and you not say anything. He was it.
All right. Now, does he have descendants still in this area?
Yes, I believe. I don't know where Miss Cannon's his daughter.
I see.
Do you know her?
No, I'm not sure I know which.
She lived here in Kennett.
Yeah.
She's probably dead, but I'm not sure. He had three. When he died, he left a will. Left the children $1 apiece, and he willed his wealth to the University of Kentucky and the University of Missouri, where he went to school. And they broke the will, but through the government, you see, through income tax and everything, that he, you know, hadn't been paying any income tax.
Okay, all right.
And that, in the court and the lawyers, I believe they wound up with just $30,000. They just tore their estate to pieces. And they wound up, I believe, with $30,000 apiece is all they got out of it, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, so in actuality then, all the stories that I heard as a child about money being buried and about snakes were really true.
They're really true. I've been down the old basement a lot of times.
All right, all right. We have been listening to Wesley Buck, who has been talking with us about the history of Hornersville. We've heard him on different programs about the earthquake and this land, and also some interesting Hornersville history. Mr. Buck, we appreciate you coming and being our guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have been watching Time for Talk. Time for Talk is a community betterment service designed to cooperate with our local community betterment program. Each evening, Monday through Friday at this time, Rosemary interviews local personalities and others who bring items of interest to this community. Time for Talk is brought to you through the cooperation of Kennett Cablevision Incorporated and is produced through the facilities of the Slicer Street Church. The Holy Scriptures come alive.